Good Thursday evening to you here on Interstate 70 Sports Media. I am James Knox, and you are tuned in to the Strike Zone. And appreciate you tuning in on this Thursday evening. Of course, the Strike Zone brought to you by Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. We got a busy show for you tonight on the season 2 premiere of the Strike Zone. We'll be talking to Joshua Brooks, otherwise known as Jags History, especially if you tune in to Roundabout Sports, rather. He is one of our avid listeners, watchers, and commenters, and always has something funny and entertaining to say. Breaking news-wise, you've got quite a bit that we're going to cover here real quick before we get to that interview. First and foremost, the St. Louis Cardinals had named Matt Holliday as the bench coach earlier in the offseason. It came out earlier today that Matt Holliday will actually resign that post, and Joe McEwing, if that name sounds familiar to you, Super Joe, will be Ollie Marmol's right-hand man this year, as he will be the bench coach for the St. Louis Cardinals. I'm guessing after listening to Matt Holliday week after week on the fast lane with those guys, Matt's oldest son, Jackson, was drafted number 1 overall by the Baltimore Orioles. And he's got a younger son that is actually a starting shortstop for the United States amateur baseball team. So I'm guessing that, he just realized that this job was going to take more time than what he was willing to sacrifice. And look, if you have kids, you know that you want to make memories with them and spend time with them. And after Matt Holliday having such a long and prestigious Major League Baseball career, I'm guessing he wanted to spend more time at home and with the kids. So best wishes to Matt Holliday. And it'll be great to see Super Joe McEwing back in a St. Louis Cardinals jersey. He was formerly the bench coach under Tony La Russa with the Chicago White Sox. More breaking news in the NFL. We've all been waiting to see if there were going to be a Chiefs and Bills AFC championship game where it would be played. The NFL made the decision in the announcement earlier today that it will be played at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. That is if the Bills and Chiefs meet in the AFC championship game. More NFL news. Peyton Hillis, the former running back for the Cleveland Browns and numerous other organizations, has been taken off of a ventilator. If you missed the story, he actually saved his children from drowning in a rip tide and a rip current in the Gulf of Mexico. So he's been taken off a ventilator, and that's good news for him. More NFL news. It just seems like it just keeps on coming. Lamar Jackson has been ruled out this weekend against Cincinnati. It does look like Tyler Huntley will be the starter. He has resumed throwing. Lamar Jackson stating that his knee still feels unstable. So he will miss this weekend's game against the Bengals. And if you didn't miss it, and I'm sure Raiders fans won't, Derek Carr said goodbye to the Vegas Raiders as he will look to go elsewhere. I could actually see him end up with the Jets, or maybe one of those organizations other than, he's not going to go to Houston. I know the Texans need a quarterback, but I'm guessing they would take Bryce Young first overall. So it does look like the odds for the NFL team to end up with Derek Carr would be the New York Jets. So we will also later on in the show, we will preview the Blues and Flames Part 2. That game gets underway here in just about an hour from Enterprise Center, and we'll get to that. But right now, I want to welcome in my nephew, and of course, like I said, Jags history on Roundabout Sports, Joshua Brooks.
Hello.
Josh, how you doing, Josh?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. It's funny when I introduce you or we go to talk. It's like I see you almost every day, so it's kind of weird. But so
you already know most of my takes anyway.
Well, that's true. But obviously, as we were talking about on Roundabout Sports last night, you were at the Titans-Jaguars game this past weekend as the Jaguars clinched the AFC South. They returned to the playoffs for the first time since 2017. Kind of take us inside. Like, how was the atmosphere inside the stadium there?
It was the loudest it's ever been. Ever since I started watching, that game was the loudest that stadium's ever been. It's sold out. There's only 68,000 available seats, and 2,000 of those out of the 70,000 were standing room only.
See, and the funny thing is like watching Jags games like on TV from the past and stuff like that always have the upper deck tarped off or whatever else. So I know
there's always fans of the other team.
Right. Well, and that's kind of what the Rams ran into in St. Louis before they moved to LA. And depending on who they're playing, it still happens that way. But, just watching that game, I mean, I can imagine like the emotions kind of up and down, because obviously neither team wanted to score any touchdowns, it seemed like. And then, of course, you get the big play there, the backside hit on Joshua Dobbs, and then Josh Allen decides to take it to the house. Like, it's weird because we've seen Trevor Lawrence have big time statistical games, and then you have a game like this where it didn't seem like they could move the ball. I mean, was it kind of as stagnant as it looked like watching the game?
On the wide open touchdown that he missed to Zay Jones, when you watch the all-22 film of it, he couldn't see Zay was getting open. So his first idea was just to throw it away. And a lot of those throws were like that, where he couldn't see them being open.
Well, and that was the thing, and that's the one I was actually going to touch on, was like he has Zay Jones open up late in the back of the end zone, and he kind of overthrew him, and Trevor kind of kicking himself as he's coming off the field. But I think other than that, the one thing that, and I get Doug Peterson, I like him as a coach. I know last night on Roundabout Sports you mentioned him as a possible Coach of the Year candidate in the NFL. I just wonder, like, the trick plays. Like the one fumble, of course, where they're trying to get.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand you're trying to. I mean, the little bit of deception there, but I think in a game against the Chargers coming up this weekend, I think it has to be straightforward. You can't turn the ball over like that again.
I don't think they're gonna try another one of those trick plays again. And actually, on their winning streak, in every single game, they turn the ball over at least one time.
Yeah, it is weird. And I'll tell you, to be completely honest with you, the first thing I did going into tonight's show was I looked at the weather report for that game, and it does look like it's going to be dry, which has kind of been Trevor's like the fly in the soup, if you will. It's like when it's cold or it's wet, he has trouble hanging onto the ball. But I think you're right. I think the game against the Titans, obviously you're trying to change up the game plan a little bit because it's a divisional team. They know your playbook. They've got tape on you regardless of what you think. But we go back to the week 4 victory where they just blasted the Chargers 38-10. The only player, I guess, that was a factor in that game that's not there now is James Robinson. He had a 50-yard run, but I think Travis Etienne's a better running back. I think that I still don't understand, and your thoughts, why are the Jaguars a 1.5 underdog here?
Because it's the Chargers. On paper, they have better receivers. They have a better running back that can receive as well, that won't drop the ball. And they got Justin Herbert.
I get that. Austin Eckler, maybe more of an all-purpose back than Travis Etienne. But we talk about their weapons, and we talked about this before we came on. Mike Williams is doubtful now with the knee, which, again, way to manage your team, Brandon Staley. And Bosa's going to be banged up, whether or not he has an injury designation or not. He did leave that game early last week.
They're missing their left tackle as well, and Rashawn Slater.
Oof. Boy, I tell you what, I don't think I would want to be Justin Herbert's backside if you're missing your left tackle. To me, the Jaguars pass rush, and this is where you can stack the box and you bring Josh Allen or even bring Darius Williams as a late rusher. I got to tell you, I told Jeremy this last night. I feel the Jaguars win this game going away. I really do. It may be close for the first half, but I think that atmosphere, I think the fact that the Jaguars feel like they're not being respected, and I think Vegas is showing you that in the line that they're 1.5 underdogs. I mean, I understand that's a pick 'em game. You could flip a coin, but something tells me like Doug Peterson in the playoffs, whether you like him as a coach or not, look what he did with the Eagles. He has his teams ready to play. Right. That's exactly it. He has his teams ready to go when it's time to get down to it.
And he's undefeated in primetime games as well.
So the opposite of Kirk Cousins as a head coach then. So if you're Doug Peterson, Josh, put yourself in Doug Peterson's shoes. If you are coming up with a defensive game plan to stop Eckler, to kind of put the wraps on Keenan Allen, like what are you doing as a head coach?
First of all, I'm making Tyson Campbell cover Keenan Allen and just try to get that pass rush to Justin Herbert because he's been okay throwing the ball when he's under pressure. And another reason I think they're favorites as well is because Herbert's not injured like he was in week 3.
True. He was banged up. That was after was that the broken ribs game against the Chiefs, right?
Yep.
So I it's just, I mean, I guess it's hard for me also because you're talking about a team that's got to fly cross country to try and, play. We've seen that teams that are coming from the West Coast flying into the Eastern time zone have a difficult time winning these games. Like I said, I get it, but you're without Mike Williams. I'm sure that will swing the line once they put an injury designation on him or make a final decision. But we talked about the Tyson Campbell line on him last night. When he was on Mike Williams, he had one catch for 15 yards and a touchdown, but he was targeted 6 times. So I think Tyson Campbell, you're going to put him on the 1, you're going to put Darius Williams on the 2, and instead of maybe blitzing, force him to beat you before the rush gets there, more or less coverage sacks instead of having to rush more than 4.
And another thing is now Darius Williams, our second corner, he's not in the slot anymore either. And that's going to impact the second receiver room as well. Right.
And that's that was the thing I liked about Raheem Morris before Darius Williams left the Rams, was the fact that when you had Ramsey on one side and you had Williams on the other, then you kind of just you're forcing the quarterback to get rid of the ball before Aaron Donald gets there. And I would say that, between Fatou Kassi, Josh Allen, and those guys, being able to blitz up the middle, or if the
Arden Key.
Right.
Arden Key's been my MVP on the defense so far this year, on the defensive line.
So are you, I guess defensive game plan wise, you're looking at just rushing 4 and then trying to bank on coverage sacks.
Yeah, because Justin Herbert is so good with the ball. He can fake the corners out and just get his receivers wide open doing that.
So I guess that means you're going to play a lot of man coverage. Justin Herbert's not a big running guy, and if he, obviously with, the fact that he's dealt with rib injuries before, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you get hurt. So, obviously, I'm guessing you have the Jaguars winning this game. I know we talked before the show that you said you could see it going into overtime. If you had to put a prediction out there before we move on to the other games, what do you think?
27-24.
So you've got 27-24 Jags. And, of course, if they win, barring any other upset, then the Jaguars will go to Arrowhead to take on the Kansas City Chiefs. So, yeah. And,
I think for the second crack at the Chiefs, they can beat them.
I was going to say the Jaguars held their own in the first meeting at Kansas City. And I think you look at both teams now, the Chiefs have struggled with the Broncos. They struggled with the Texans. Even the Rams were in that game with them for a while. I would say that both teams now are much different teams than they were the first time they met. Okay, so we'll hop from that game and we'll go to the other game we were talking about. So we'll hop to the Monday nighter as the Dallas Cowboys travel to Raymond James Stadium to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the GOAT, Tom Brady. We talked about this last night on Roundabout Sports. I just don't see the Dallas Cowboys going in there and beating Tom Brady. I just don't see it happening.
No.
You look at Brady. Brady's undefeated against the Cowboys. Dak Prescott has thrown interceptions in 8 straight games. Obviously, the one big X factor here for the Cowboys is Micah Parsons. And I think that the Buccaneers defense, whether it be Vita Vea or Levante David or whoever they decide to stack the box with, can kind of contain Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott and make Dak beat them. What do you think about that?
Just look at what the Dallas offense did against the Commanders.
Yeah, I was going to try not to bring that up because I thought it was kind of understood and implied there, but you're right. The Commanders started to play their backups. The Cowboys were playing all of their starters. It forced Jerry Jones to come out and kind of make a very strong statement to his team and to his head coach. I kind of feel, and I mentioned this last night, that if Brandon Staley loses to the Jaguars, I think the Chargers are looking for a new head coach. I feel the same way about the Dallas Cowboys. If they go into Tampa and lose or look bad doing so, I have a feeling that Mike McCarthy is going to be on the unemployment line.
Well, Micah Parsons has to get going in this game if they're going to have any chance to win.
I think, and I go back because the Rams played the Buccaneers this year, and, of course, we lost to them because Tom Brady is, Tom Brady. And that was the one problem that we had, was getting getting any kind of pressure. Aaron Donald was hurt that game as well. But his offensive line, I mean, he lost Jansen as center at the very beginning of the year. His offensive line looks more like that of a piece of Swiss cheese. They've just kind of pasted it together. And you're right. I think it becomes Micah Parsons, and I think it Trayvon Diggs in the back, on the backside of the defense. If I'm guessing you're going to put him on Mike Evans and then force Brady to, go spread the ball around elsewhere and hope that Parsons can get there before Brady gets rid of the ball.
If Parsons has been playing like he did, for example, like the Jaguars game when they played him, he let our second string left tackle who hasn't been starting pancaking. And that usually doesn't happen with Micah Parsons.
So here's my thing. He got all of these accolades and everything, early on in the year, and then you just kind of.
You guys had him as the defensive player of the year.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, I know. And boy, I don't want to eat words on my own damn show. But it comes back to the fact that he was the only person on that defense up in the front seven that was doing anything. So it's easy to shade coverage or shade protection over, and you have to find a way to beat that. Aaron Donald, that happened to him 2-3 years. And we saw what happened in the Super Bowl last year where he didn't show up. There was no big time pressure on Joe Burrow. And then the one time he gets to him
until the end of the game.
And it forced the incompletion, and the Rams won the game. I'm curious here. Yeah, the Dallas Cowboys are 2.5-point favorites in that game. I think I'm going to take the Buccaneers in the point. I'm definitely taking the Buccaneers in the points. I think the Buccaneers win that game outright, 28-24. What do you think?
I don't even know if the Cowboys are going to score 24 points after watching what I watched on Sunday.
Oh, goodness. So what do you think? But you got to think,
too, the Cowboys rookie, Sam Williams, I think his name is, he got arrested.
Yep. So, that's right. I forgot all about that.
How would that impact the game? Because he's been leading in their pressure unit as well.
Well, I would guess that defensively that means he would be handcuffed. All right, so we'll go to the next game here. I don't even know why we're covering this game. I feel so sorry for Miami Dolphins fans. Tua's been ruled out. Teddy Bridgewater's still hurt. It's going to be Skylar Thompson, the third-string quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, as they try to go into Buffalo and defeat the Bills, which is going to be a tall task anyway, obviously, now that team is playing so heartfelt and hearts on the sleeves for DeMar Hamlin. Still great news. He's still doing well. He was released from Buffalo General yesterday. I thank whatever higher power you pray for or pray to, rather. But the Buffalo Bills – it may be the Dolphins that need the prayer. The Bills are 13-point favorites at a noon game, a 1 Eastern game on Sunday on CBS.
I don't know if 13's enough.
Is this going to be the closest thing to the college football playoff national championship game we had Monday night? Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think the Bills win this going away 31-10. I'm kind of with you. 13 points isn't enough.
Well, like I said on your show last night, I can see a way if the Dolphins somehow could bring pressure to Josh Allen. He fumbles or throws too many interceptions. But that's the only way. I don't think Skylar Thompson's going to do anything on offense.
I feel bad because the Dolphins got off to such a great start this year, and Tua looked great, and then he has the concussion, oddly enough, at Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati. And then, of course, he gets his bell rung again. We find out that he's in concussion protocol. That was after the Christmas Day game against the Packers. And yeah, so I just feel bad for Dolphins fans, but I guess the one thing you look at is that, I guess their future looks bright, whether with Tua or, if you believe the rumors, that Tom Brady could sign with the Dolphins next year.
The Dolphins better run Raheem Mostert a lot in this game.
Yeah, I think it's
any chance.
I think this becomes a Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson type game. If you could knock down the time of possession and maybe ball control, that may be the only way you stay in this game. All right, we'll go to the other, the middle game on Sunday. This may very well be the closest game of the weekend. The New York Giants and Danny Dimes going on the road to U.S. Bank Stadium to take on the Minnesota Vikings and the new nightmare known as Kirk Cousins. The Vikings are
probably the primetime nightmare. I don't know about the new nightmare.
The Vikings are a 3-point favorite, and that's all they're getting in this game is the 3 points for being at home.
I think the Giants are going to win.
Yeah, we kind of talked about this last night as well. I'm kind of with you. I think that Saquon Barkley goes off. I think the defense finds a way to contain Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook just enough to keep the Giants in this game. And the threat of Danny Dimes being able to run the ball as well helps the Giants win this ball game.
And I think Daboll's a better coach.
Yeah, Kevin O'Connell was the offensive coordinator under Sean McVay before going to Minnesota and taking that job. I'm kind of with you, Brian. I mentioned this last night. Brian Daboll's been there. He's obviously had the tutelage under Bill Belichick. I can't stand the man, but he's one of the best postseason coaches in NFL history. I'm with you. I think the Giants win this game. I think they win it 28-24, and I think Danny Dimes is going to play a huge part in this game in getting the Giants to the second round.
Well, look what Daboll did with Josh Allen last year.
Very true. And if all for 13 seconds and that silly ass overtime rule that thankfully have been changed, I didn't realize that went into effect this year. We'll get to that here in just a second after we talk about this next game. The Ravens and the Bengals at Paycor Stadium. This is the Sunday night game. The Bengals are 9.5-point favorites. And now with the news of Lamar Jackson not playing, being ruled out indefinitely, I think this is the end of the line for the Baltimore Ravens.
You want to know something I saw today on Twitter? This Ravens fan was asking if NFL can just replay the game from last weekend. Because there's no way the Ravens are winning without Lamar.
I would give anything to see the Joe Mixon coin toss celebration again. You're right. I don't think they have it. The Baltimore Ravens have always been built a lot on defense, but we saw that with the year that when Trent Dilfer was their quarterback and won the Super Bowl. But Ray Lewis isn't stepping through that door, and neither is Ed Reed. The Bengals are going to torch the Ravens secondary
Their
with
defense
guys like
is banged up anyway.
Right. And then you've got to worry about T. Higgins and Boyd and, of course, Jamar Chase, and then Joe Mixon coming out of the backfield. And Samaje Perine can catch passes as well. Good luck, Baltimore. The last game, and this is actually the early game on Saturday, I skipped over this one, obviously, because I don't think it's going to be much of a game. And this is the Seattle Seahawks at the San Francisco 49ers. Believe it or not, I'm kind of sold on Brock Purdy. I
am too.
What it shows to me is that Kyle Shanahan's system, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is, you can be successful. So I brought this up to Jeremy off the air yesterday. If Brock Purdy leads this team deep into the playoffs, is Trey Lance's career in San Francisco over before it starts?
Yes.
Well, that's why you get paid the big bucks. Short and sweet. That is the answer.
I think Trey Lance would be the backup. And that just depends on if Brock Purdy takes them a long way. If somehow he goes out there, throws multiple picks, fumbles a lot, then I think they start Trey Lance next year.
Brock Purdy, the first rookie quarterback trying to win his first playoff game as a rookie since Russell Wilson, Mr. Limited. So, all right.
He's also favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year now, too.
Isn't that crazy? Like, I when we played them the second time, I really was hoping that Jimmy G would have missed that game. But Jimmy G just, for some reason, Sean McVay cannot beat the 49ers. We may not have to worry about that much longer if Sean McVay goes to TV. But just for some reason, and Jimmy G, the only time we beat him was the time we were really counted, and that was to go to the Super Bowl. So, it's amazing to me, Mr. Irrelevant out of Iowa State, Brock Purdy, but he played 47 college games. Zach Wilson only played 28. And we're seeing having that little bit more seasoning in college, and the fact that he's not trying to run around with his mom's best friend can win you games in the NFL. Speaking of, and I'm not going to I don't want to dig into all this. I glanced at it earlier and I kind of gave myself a headache. So the overtime rule changes it's similar to college now. Both team gets the ball, a touchdown on the first drive doesn't end the game. So obviously this is the Buffalo Bills rule. This is from last year where the Chiefs won the toss and went right down. So, or not last year, but the year before with the Chiefs and the Patriots, where was it the Chiefs and the Bills or the Chiefs and the Patriots?
Yeah, it was this year because
okay,
the AFC Championship.
That's right. I can't remember. This all runs together after a while, but that's the weekend looking at the NFL games. Obviously, the Eagles are the 1 seed in the NFC. They get the bye. The Chiefs are the 1 seed in the AFC by default. And I've been listening to people chirp all day about how they're unhappy that the Chiefs were handed that game. Look, I mean, things happen. I don't really agree with it either because I think the NFL got away from actually using their own tiebreaker rules. It was the idea that we'll go by winning percentage. That wasn't the case. So, but I mean, I'm just curious, like coming out of it, like who do you have going to the Super Bowl out of both conferences?
So with the new AFC, the rule that came out with the AFC Championship game being played in, I don't see the Chiefs and Bills being in it. I don't even see the Chiefs in it. I think the Bengals and Bills are your AFC Championship matchup.
See,
and then the Eagles are in the NFC.
I'm kind of with you. Like, I think the Bengals and the Bills would be the more entertaining game. And I mean, you know, I guess the good thing about that is that game would be played in Buffalo. But I mean, and I mentioned this last night on the show. Can you imagine if those two teams see each other on their schedule again, and it's going to just conjure up all those feelings about what happened? And, you know, so I don't know. I think it's going to be an interesting playoff. We kind of talked about it last night that, you know, really it can be a coin toss between, you know, the top 3 teams in the AFC. I don't put Jacksonville. I mean, obviously Jacksonville, I feel beats the Chargers. And I think after that, I'm just, you know, I'm not sure. You know, there's just a part of me that feels like defense wins championships. Offense sells tickets. Defense wins championships. So, you know, we'll see going forward. And
after they beat the Cowboys, I'm not underestimating the Jaguars going into this playoffs.
Right. I mean, I don't think you can. I mean, I know that game was played in Jacksonville, and you know, Jacksonville gets their one home game, and then they're going to go on the road. But again, I'll go back and say it again. Defense travels. It really does. I mean, you don't have to adhere to your own snap count or worry about a false start, you know, playing on defense. And I think the defense, when they are at their very best, I think can hang with any offense in the league. I mean, hell, when they weren't any good, they beat the Buffalo Bills 9-6. Let's not forget that. And that was under a head coach that, well, quite frankly, didn't know what the hell he was doing. The best thing he did for Jacksonville was leave. So, you know, I don't know. I think it really, this weekend's going to be very interesting. I think it's going to be a tale of many, many different stories. I think storylines, obviously, with the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence, and then whether or not Kirk Cousins can lead the Vikings to a victory, and you know, just seeing what these teams can do. I think it's really interesting. We've talked about it, you and I, numerous times, that the NFL this year, it was really flipped upside down. And I kind of think that the playoffs are going to be more of the same. Matter of fact, I kind of hope they are. So,
I mean, who would have thought the Giants would be in the playoffs this year?
I will go back and I will say and reiterate what Jeremy said last night over and over and over again. We had them going 4-13.
Exactly. So,
I mean, we had the Commanders better than the Giants. I mean, look, for the longest time, the Jets were in the playoffs.
But if they had one good quarterback that they can rely on, they would be in the playoffs right now.
Well, and it's funny that you bring that up because their owner came out and actually said, hey, look, I'm willing to pay, you know, big money for the quarterback because he feels that's the missing piece. I think the other thing that hurt them too was when Breece Hall got hurt earlier this year, and it just kind of changed their entire offense. Robert Saleh's a great head coach. He was a wonderful defensive coordinator with San Francisco. And I think he's got a bright future as well. I mean, for the longest time there, you know, when they were winning games, you know, he was in the running for the coach of the year as well. So even the Jets, when they got James Robinson, they benched him. Yeah, he never played it. He never played for him. They were talking about that today as well. You know, a lot of props to 101 ESPN and Randy Carricker and Kerry Davis. They were talking about it this morning and talking about the Jets in that same ilk that, you know, they made the trade for James Robinson once Breece Hall got hurt and he never saw the field. He got Urban Meyered again. Well, I'm going to leave that alone. Meyer benched him and then he got hurt. So, I mean, do they not think he was healthy enough? I don't know. I'm going to walk away from that, though, because it's going to get me in trouble. You were talking about Derek Carr going to the Jets, I actually see him going to Indy. He's already looking at houses in the Indianapolis area. Oh, goodness. I think that if that is the case, Colts fans will riot and burn down Lucas Oil Stadium. I think that
Carr is a better quarterback than the past two they've had.
I can't disagree with that, but I don't know. I just think that I feel the Colts are more than just a quarterback away. Tennessee, all they have to do, Tennessee can fix their quarterback issues. They'll be all right and get an offensive coordinator who doesn't want to run the ball all the time. I thought for a while there Mike Vrabel might be on the hot seat, but I think the first thing he had to do was fire his OC, and that didn't take. I think he probably fired him on the plane back to Nashville after losing to the Jaguars.
I was literally at the airport about to leave. They fired their offensive coordinator, their O-line coach, and I think the defensive coach as well.
Yep, they cleaned house, and sometimes you have to do that. And it's the Titans. I think that if you're in the AFC South, look, the Colts are going to pass them if they can get right. The Jaguars have already passed them, and don't look now, but if the Houston Texans are building something. I mean, they just went in. So I don't know. They just went in and
I would agree with that more if Lovie Smith was still their coach.
God. I'll get you out of here on this. I'm just going to say this. The fact that Lovie Smith had, screwed his former team by screwed the Texans and giving the first round draft pick to his former team was awesome. Let's go for 2 and get it, and then we'll win. And I just thought that was priceless. Too good. So
yeah, it was great.
All right, Josh, I appreciate you hopping on tonight. Obviously, if the Jaguars beat the Chargers, we'll have you on back next week. I told Jordan, I said, if Tom Brady and your Buccaneers beat the Cowboys, I'm bringing you all on this next week. So he's like, yeah, he goes, if I can find my voice. So apparently he's been sick and lost his voice too. So I was like, well, at least it's going around. But Josh, I appreciate you jumping on, and hopefully the Jaguars will get the win, and we'll hopefully have you back on next week.
Well, thank you. Hope to be here next week.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, Josh, appreciate it. Jags history. Thanks for joining us tonight. All righty. Let's see here. Let's get to the Blues and Flames here. We're about a half an hour away. Barbie Ann, our wonderful graphic designer, says, hi, guys. And I say hello, and thanks for joining us tonight. And a big thank you to Jags history, Joshua Brooks, my nephew, for hopping on. I used to give him a lot of flack for being a Jaguars fan. This is the one year he can kind of get even with me for being a Rams fan, since we set the record for the most losses by a defending Super Bowl championship team. So, all righty, let's hop on here. We'll take a look at the projected lineup for the Blues tonight against the Calgary Flames. Blues obviously coming off a 4-3 overtime victory against the Flames on Tuesday night. Your top line, Pavel Buchnevich, Robert Thomas, and Jordan Kyrou, Brendan Saad, Braden Shin, Ivan Barbashev on the second line, Jake Neighbors, Noel Achari, Josh Levo, your third line, and then Toropchenko, Alexandrov, and Pitlick on your fourth line. Defensively, Nico Mikkola with Colton Parayko, Callie Rosen, and Justin Falk, and then Tyler Tucker and Steven Santini. In between the pipes tonight for your St. Louis Blues would be Thomas Greiss. For the Flames, their top line consists of Dylan Dubé, Elias Lindholm, and Tyler Toffoli. Second line is Milan Lucic, Nazem Kadri, Jonathan Huberdeau, Andrew Mangiapane, Michael Backlund, and Blake Coleman. Their third line, Trevor Lewis with Adam Ruzicka and Walker Duehr. Pairings are Noah Hannafin, Rasmus Anderson, Mackenzie Weegar, and Chris Tanev, Nikita Zadorov, and Michael Stone. And their goaltender tonight will be Dan Vladar. Jacob Markstrom got the start in the loss for the Flames on Tuesday night. Blues looking to keep their ways of getting 2 points intact. And let's take a look at the standings here real quick as we go into tonight's game. The Blues are, I believe, if I remember correctly, they are tied with Calgary, but are 2 points behind the Edmonton Oilers for that last playoff spot. Blues are fourth in the Central Division with a record of 21-18-3. All righty here. That's what I want. Technology is great until it doesn't work. Of course, remember, you're trying to run Wi-Fi off of a hotel as well. So looking at the standings here for the Western Conference, the Blues find themselves, as I said, fourth in the Western Conference. They played 42 games, 21-18-3 in the division, and they are trailing the Minnesota Wild by 3 points, but they also have played 2 more games than Minnesota. Minnesota with 2 games in hand with the Blues. Wild card standings for the Western Conference, okay? The Calgary Flames, they are at 47 points. Edmonton Oilers are at 47. They're tied. And then the Blues are 2 points behind Edmonton and Calgary. So a win tonight would put the Blues in the playoffs. After the overtime win the other night, they were in the second playoff spot, but Edmonton won last night and knocked the Blues back to just outside the playoffs. It's hard to believe that when you look at a team like the Blues that have struggled at many points this year, that they're on a roll now without Ryan O'Reilly, without Vladimir Tarasenko, without Torrey Krug and Nick Leddy on the back end. And there's a lot of talk that Nick Leddy will be back shortly and could be a player this weekend against Tampa. Craig Berube was on 101 ESPN's The Fast Lane yesterday saying Nick Leddy is skating again and he could be a player soon. Robert Bertuzzo is still day-to-day. He's still struggling. And obviously Scandella and Perunovic are still at least 3 months away from coming back and being productive. Perunovic, obviously the shoulder, and those are going to take a while. Scandella had hip surgery after tearing his labrum and some other issues there. So the Blues really playing great hockey. They've gotten points in their last 14 games. So the Blues look to keep things moving. The problem is they haven't gained much room or much they haven't gained much on the leaders in the conference. Before the Blues started this tear that they've been on, they were 11 points out of first place in the division. And as of yesterday, well, guess what? They're still 11 points out of first place. The Dallas Stars are first in the Central at 25-11-6. They have 56 points. Winnipeg is second. They've played 41 games. They are 26-14-1, good for 53 points. And then, of course, the Wild, 22-14-4. They are 48 points and 3 points ahead of the St. Louis Blues. Minnesota with 2 games in hand. Understand that the Blues' last game of the month sits on January 30th. That game against Winnipeg. And let's make sure it's January 30th against Winnipeg on the road. And then the Blues have an 11-day break without playing a game. They've got the bye week leading up to the All-Star game, and then they have their bye coming out of it as well. Of course, the bye week was instituted by the NHL 4 years ago. So let's look at your Blues preview for the Blues and Flames tonight. Breaking news-wise, I think we've got everything kind of settled down, and we'll look to end the show here. Obviously, after tonight's game against the Calgary Flames, tune in for the fourth period with myself, James Knox, also brought to you by Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. I'd like to thank again Josh Brooks, Jags History, for joining me tonight. And for everybody for tuning in, it's much appreciated. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and have a wonderful evening.